This is Ken. We are here at our weekly vlog post for Experience Traveling. And we thought this week, I say we affectionately because Christina's not here in the video, but she's always there in the background. This is one of my favorite backgrounds. And my internet appears to be a little dicey today, so I apologize if it's a little fuzzy. But we thought we would talk about changes to TSA, mainly impacting obviously air travel here from the US and then internationally. And we wanted to make sure that we highlighted some upcoming changes. Um, some have already occurred actually for 2025, and some will be upcoming in 2025. The first that, so there's 5 of them that we like to highlight. First of them is the Real ID. Many of you may have heard about this Real ID for actually several years now. Well, as of May 7th, 2025, it will actually be instituted and enforced. May 7th, 2025. So that means even to fly domestically here in the US from, say, St. Louis, which is our home airport, to Dallas or wherever else in the US, you must have a real ID. Your normally issued state driver's license will no longer be accepted or valid. Okay. So what's been happening is when you go renew your driver's license, at least here in my home state of Missouri, and I assume across the country in various home states, when you renew your driver's license, they tell you to upgrade it to the real ID. Some may not be giving you a choice. You actually had a choice here in Missouri. You could upgrade it or not upgrade it. But if you upgraded it to the real ID, you'll be fine. Also, too, there's a lot of misinformation out there. If you don't have a real ID, then you can't fly. That is not true at all, right? If you have a passport, your passport is always good. Your passport is like the highest level of personal identification you can have, period. So if you don't have a real ID and you have a passport, then you'll just need to use your passport, right? And so no big deal. Also, too, if you're like Christina and I, we have global entry. So you get a global entry ID card. That also is that also will be accepted as like a real ID at airports for domestic travel. Okay, so your global entry card. I think some other companies for screening purposes, like what's that clear and all that stuff that you see at airports too, like they issue IDs too. Those IDs, I believe, are also covered to be taken as well. But for ours, if you want to just keep it simple, if you don't have a state issued driver's license that qualifies under the real ID, you can use your passport. Or if you don't have a passport and you don't have a real ID issued by the state, I recommend you go ahead and maybe get global entry. So only, well, I think it's gone up, but it was, basically $100. I think it's $125 now to do that, and it's good for several years, and then that will be your ID as well. Okay, so real ID is going to be enforced as of May 7th. That's item number 1. Item number 2 is, let's talk about prescription medications. There are actually some changes as it relates to prescription medications. And there might be some guidelines that were in place, but perhaps really not enforced, that will start being enforced. So if you have a prescription medication and you want to take it with you, and of course you have to take it with you, most likely when you're traveling on vacation, you should bring your prescription medications in the original issued container. Okay. If you're like me, I actually took my prescription medications and I put them in a pill box, right, for my 7 days, or if it was longer, my 2 pill boxes or whatever, just to have it in there. That way I didn't have to take all those containers. Don't do that anymore. Like if you're like me, like do not do that. Take the original container prescription that has your name on it, the issuing doctor, and that name needs to match the travel documents. Okay. So just be aware of that. Also, the other highly recommended item is that you take all your prescriptions or your pill bottles and you just put them in a plastic bag, like a Ziploc plastic bag, and they're all in one spot. And of course, you want to put these in your carry-on. You could check them if you want, but then you risk obviously you run the risk of it being lost or delayed. So always, right, pro travel tip, always put your prescription medications in your carry-on bag. Okay, so put them in the original containers. Put those containers in a clear plastic bag. So when you're going through security, it's easy to say, okay, here are all my prescriptions, and they can match it if need be, if there's any questions or issues about all of that. Okay. Now, there are also the guidelines, the liquid guidelines. Okay. The liquid guidelines for prescription medications are not in force. So the prescription liquids, so just as item number 3, it's the liquid rule. It's 100 milliliters or less. 100 milliliters is 3.4 ounces, okay, or less that you can carry on. That is still in place. But prescriptions are exempt from that. Now, the downside is you may have to prove that. Like you might have to spend some time explaining why you have this liter bottle of liquid prescription, and they may question those sorts of things, right? But if it's a valid item, then you will be able to carry it on. It will not have to be checked if it's a prescription. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Just to go back to the prescriptions real quick. Let's talk about over-the-counter medications. So it's still fine to put the over-the-counter medications in your pill box and all that sort of thing. Not a big issue there. Your vitamins and all of that stuff, vitamins and supplements and all of those sorts of things. All right. Now, a lot of people are taking like CBD gummies and cannabis items and all that sort of thing, like as supplements and bringing them through. Uh, so just be very careful about that, because not every state has the same laws as in regards to marijuana and CBD products. And similarly, if you're traveling internationally, like going to Mexico, they do not have the same laws about marijuana that we do here. So, right, don't just let that go. Make sure that the country you're going to, if you're going internationally, that the country you're going to know what their requirements are. For instance, in Mexico, as another rule, you cannot bring a vape, right? As like cigarette, vape, you cannot bring that through. Okay, so know what the rules are of the country you're traveling to, and make sure you don't get in trouble with that. All right, it's easy. Kind of sometimes when you're traveling state to state, and you just pack your stuff. You just pack the same stuff when you go down to your beach vacation in Mexico or the Dominican Republic or Jamaica or wherever. But Jamaica and the Dominican Republic and Mexico all have different laws as it relates to marijuana, CBD products, cigarettes, all of those sorts of things. So know and understand that, right? Make sure that's your responsibility to make sure that you know and understand that. All right. So we did it. So we did the real IDs, number 1, did prescription rules, right, for 2025. The liquid rules we already mentioned too, in conjunction with the prescriptions. And we are now to item 4, which is lithium batteries. Actually, there has been rules about lithium batteries for many years, but just want to clarify that. It's always some confusion. And you think, okay, well, I don't just randomly carry lithium batteries with me, but yes, you do. If you're taking a computer laptop, you have lithium ion batteries in that. If you're taking a pad, uh, a Kindle, an iPad, whatever, you're taking lithium ion batteries with you. Your phone has lithium ion batteries in it. All right. So just understand that. And the rule in your carry-ons, by the way, the rule is 15 lithium ion batteries. Okay. You can bring up to 15 lithium ion batteries, and by proxy, the devices, right, that they're attached to, you can bring up to 15, which is a large number, by the way. I mean, I don't know if, like, Christina and I are going together, we don't have 15 devices that we take, and we don't bring extra lithium ion batteries to swap out, like sometimes people might bring extra batteries to swap out, specifically lithium ion ones, the rechargeable ones. We don't do that. So just keep that in mind. And lithium ion batteries are not allowed in check bags. You can only carry those on. Okay, 15 or less. You can only carry those on. You cannot check those. So just keep that in mind. And the reason for that too is, but I don't know if you're aware, but just a little chemistry. I'm a chemistry geek. It's very easy to ignite and explode lithium-ion batteries. Very easy. So the fact that they let you carry them on, I think, is interesting as well. But obviously, in a check bag, you could just do a check bag, put it on there, and then do some nefarious things. Good in a carry-on too, but whatever. Anyway, those are the rules. Item 5, the last item for today, as it relates to TSA rules and specifically for flights, is tech screening updates and upgrades. So airports across the country are getting upgraded, what's called Cat 2 units. These are credential authentication technology. Credential authentication technology, Cat 2 units. And the goal is that they are faster, more accurate, and there'll be less separating of things. And when you go through, you carry on, you have to take your lithium ion battery devices out, right? You have to put your laptops and your phones and all that separately, and to go through the screening and all of that. So this is supposed to hopefully decrease the ability where you don't have to unpack everything. Not everywhere. I mean, this will be rolled out across the country at different airports. So our home airport of St. Louis here would probably be more towards the tail end of that rollout, I would guess, given the busyness of the airport. Here's our pro tip recommendation as it relates to going through screening. Get TSA pre-check. Like if you don't do a lot of international traveling, but you still do a lot of domestic traveling, highly recommend you get TSA pre-check. Right? Then you don't have to take your stuff out of your bag anyway, because that's the whole purpose of the pre-checks, that you're pre-screened and you're not a security threat. That's the purpose of it. So then you can just go right through security and just wave at the people, have a chat with the TSA people. Some of them are less friendly than others, so that's for true, but that's what I like to do as I go through. And then if you are traveling internationally and you don't have global entry, why not? Get global entry. It's great. Breezes right through customs. It's being recognized internationally at more and more spots. So hopefully you can breeze right through, even when you're going through customs in other countries as well. All right. And then the other item too, and this is going to go back to your to the prescriptions, which was the big item number 2 on the list today. Always get travel insurance when you're going anywhere, even if you're traveling domestically. I highly recommend that you get travel insurance and put it on there. Like if you're traveling a lot, maybe an annual policy. We just did an annual policy because we'll be traveling several times here in 2025 as we go to Cabo at least a couple of times for our condos. So highly recommend the travel insurance, and that will help if something happens or arises with your prescriptions. They're lost, they're spoiled, or whatever. If you need to replace them, so you highly recommend the travel insurance. So that will do it for the vlog this week. The vlog post this week is 25 TSA rule updates changes for 2025 that impacts their air travel. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode. Sorry, next blog post.